Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today's video will be a reading wrap up in which I'll be combining both November and December. Although I know December is not over yet, I'm filming this on the 10th or 11th right now, so we still have a lot to go through in December, but I am in the middle of another book that I will hopefully finish in January or in the beginning of January, and so technically my reading year is over, and this book is Demons by Dostoevsky. You will see a whole reading vlog on this one that I'm currently filming, so it will come out hopefully the end of January or whenever I finish it. So again, my reading year is over. I have ended up reading in total this year 51 pages, so I did not end up reading too much in these past couple of months, December and November. I only have one singular physical copy in here, so let's just get started with the books that I finished, because I did not have a great reading couple of months, but hopefully with Demons it will get better. So the first book I finished is the book that I have been reading for the past 3 months right now, and it's kind of embarrassing that I have only finished it in November, and that's How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. I ended up finishing this book, but only because it was embarrassing, as I said, because I didn't really feel any desire to read this book, to finish it, and I just kind of forced myself to do it. And this book really tells you the story about how about colonization and imperialism and all of that stuff, and most of that stuff I already knew. Like there wasn't a lot of information that I did not already know. Like I already know those kind of stuff, but it just gave you more details, and in the beginning it was interesting, but as it went on, it just felt kind of repetitive, because I know what are you trying to tell me. I don't know, maybe for someone who isn't really aware of how Europe used Africa to get resources, or like use slaves and stuff like that, maybe it would be more interesting. But for me, I already know that kind of stuff, so it just felt like I wasn't really learning as much as I wanted to, and also the writing was a bit more dense. And this was written in the 70s or 60s, maybe the 70s, and so I feel like it was a bit outdated because of, obviously things has changed, and it was also a critique on capitalism, which I also really liked. But overall, I just feel like it was not a book that I would recommend. Like the ideas in there were interesting, and I would have preferred if it were an essay or something, because as a book it just felt like a bit too stretched out and too dense. I don't know, it just felt like it was not really accessible for everyone, and it just felt like a chore to actually read it. Even though it's not a very long book, it felt very heavy in a way, because it gave us too many details, and like in my opinion those details were unnecessary. Like we get it, we understand it, so I ended up just finishing it because I didn't want to have that book to be unfinished on my TBR, but it's not my favorite. The next book I finished is Out of Love by Hazel Hayes. This book has a really interesting premise, because for most romance books they really start with when the characters meet until they get into a relationship, but this one is actually the opposite. We start on the day they break up, and then we go back in time until the day they first met, and I found that really such a unique premise that I haven't seen before, and I found that really interesting. Really, I don't know, I just loved how our main character was, just we're seeing this relationship that is doomed, because obviously we know that they break up from the start. So it was really beautiful. It was beautiful writing, and I just love this book so much. The next book I finished is Frankenstein, still in November. This is a reread for me. I read it the first time, I think 2 years ago, and I loved it, and I still love it. It's one of my favorite classics, or my favorite books of all time, really. I read this one in preparation for the movie that came out, and I still prefer the book. The book is still so much better than the movie. This time I was highlighting it more than the first time, I mean. So I basically highlighted every other page in here. There's a sentence in every other page. Like I removed the tops, but I highlighted everything in here. This book is just so beautiful. Like I have never read anything that has this beautiful prose in any other book before. I would say that this one is actually one of my favorite books of all time. The reason I said that I still prefer the book over the movie is because in the book we know that there is no villain or or like good character. We know both of them are flawed. Both Victor and the creature are flawed characters, and you kind of see yourself, and you kind of see yourself in each of them, and like find both of them relatable in certain ways. But in the movie, like the Guillermo del Toro's movie, the newest one, although it was beautiful, like the visuals were beautiful and all of that, the acting was great. What I did not like about it is the fact that they made Victor the villain. Like they made him, they really ruined his character, because in the book he's not really like that. He's not at all. And they just gave his father, again, is such an important character in the story, and in the movie they just made him this really unlikable character who just dies off very very soon. And we know that in the book, in the movie, he kind of influences him to become this so like very harsh character. And when in reality, like in the book, he's not like that at all. He's such a sweet character, and I feel like they kind of ruined his character again. And also they made Victor this one-dimensional side, because he in the movie he was just very harsh, when in the book he wasn't like that at all. And that really just, I feel like it's not that difficult to make this book. They kind of what I did not like about the movie is that they kind of removed the nuance out of it, because this book has such complex characters, and the movie did not really do that justice, in my opinion. Although I did enjoy it, but I feel like they just did not do the characters justice, especially Victor's character. But I did like what they did with Elizabeth's character. The next book I finished is Katabasis by R.F. Kuang. I used to say I would not read this book until I have the physical copy, but since I am on a book buying ban, although I did break the book buying ban to get this one, we don't talk about it right now. I just could not wait until I find the physical copy, until I get the physical copy, so I ended up reading it as an ebook instead. And I'm glad I did, because this was one of the best books I've read this year. I know that a lot of people were complaining about it, saying that it's too dense. It's like you had to have a PhD to read it, to understand it, and like a lot of people were complaining about this book, and I really don't understand why, because this is a dark academia book, and if you know anything about dark academia, you know that dark academia basically is unlikable characters who are obsessed with a certain topic, and then they end up doing something like immoral kind of, and they justify their actions based on that obsession with that specific topic. So they obviously need to have huge knowledge about that topic. In this case, Katabasis is hell. That's the topic they know, like every literature about hell, everything they know about it. So obviously we cannot know everything that has been written. I know that there have been people who used to say that you have to read certain books to enjoy Katabasis, and I wouldn't say I completely disagree with that, because the main characters, Alice and what's his name? Alice and Peter. Yes, the main characters, Alice and Peter, are magicians in this university, in Cambridge University, and so both of them are doing their PhD. So they are living in a bubble, as you would expect, because they are just meeting with certain academics, the same academics, and they studying kind of the same things, and so to them that's how they talk to each other. They use those kind of things, like the same thing with the Secret History, where they use ancient Greek or Latin to speak to each other, because they just live in that bubble, and they think that's really their obsession. And so it makes sense that they would talk about Dante's Inferno, about the Aeneas or whatever, I don't know how it's pronounced. If you don't know those books, those source material, then you wouldn't know 100% what they're talking about. But this doesn't mean that you would not understand the book if you don't know what they're talking about. It's still very accessible, and it's still a very fun read, because I feel like R.F. Kuang really had so much fun writing this book, because it's kind of silly, even though it's one of the silliest topics, the silliest books that she has written, because although it does handle important topics, it just kind of does that in a way that is really fun. And I don't think you would need a PhD to understand this, because there's a section in here where they are in hell, and there's this character who is talking about Crime and Punishment, which is a book that I have read this year, and they were talking about what's his name? Raskolnikov, and they were saying that Raskolnikov is right, and like Sonia is the one who made him like have self-doubts and stuff like that. And I understand that if you don't know, if you have not read that book, and if you don't know who Raskolnikov is or Sonia is, then you will be a bit confused. But again, it does not it will not ruin your experience if you have not read these books. You don't have to read them to understand. Again, it would improve your experience if you have read Dante's Inferno, if you have read the Aeneas, if you have read all those books that the characters mention, but it's not a requirement. And so I just want to say that this is a 5-star book. I love the characters, even though they are unlikable. We know that. Even the author says that they are unlikable because they are both very full of themselves, especially Alice. She thinks that she's above racism, above sexism, above all of these things. If she just worked hard enough, then she would not face those things. And we, especially the end, we kind of see her character growth. We see how she grew in Hell. And I also like seeing, because her and Peter kind of had this rivalry going on between them. She thinks he hates her, he thinks she hates him, and so there's a bit of a romance between them, but not really. There's this misunderstanding between them that they ended up fixing while they are both in Hell. And I just love the dynamic between the two characters, and I loved seeing the whole landscape of Hell because it was just so interesting. Yeah, this was a 5-star book. This will make it the best books of this year. The next book I have not really finished, but the next book I picked up is Heaven and Hell by John Kalman Stephenson. This is the first book in a trilogy. This is translated from Icelandic, and the premise sounded really interesting, but the writing did not really work for me. Like, I have read a few pages, like I think I've read the second, like 2 chapters, and I had no idea what's going on. I just couldn't really focus on the book. I didn't understand what's going on, so I ended up DNFing it very early on. So the next book I've picked up is Sable for One by Emma Gannon. This is the first book I finished in December, and the only book I finished in December, because as I said, I'm in the middle of the biggest one right now. This one is about this woman who is in her mid-30s. She's 35, and she thinks she has all of her life figured out. She's in a good relationship. She just bought a house with her boyfriend. She is the co-founder of this company. So she thinks her life is really she's accomplished everything she wanted to accomplish by this age, until she really didn't have anything. She went through a breakup. She lost the company because she had founded the company with her boyfriend, and he kind of threw her out of it in a way. And she no longer has the house, because I think it was his house. So she is back in square one, and at the same time she is kind of wanting to be a writer because she lost her job, and also she loves writing, and she is supposed to write an article about millennials versus Gen Z. She's a millennial, and she is supposed to interview this Gen Z influencer who, like, her really Instagram handle is Single Naz, because she influences women to be single, and she thinks that being in a relationship is not really worth it. And as for our main character was in a relationship for over 10 years, I think, and so she is she's the complete opposite of this Single Naz. But at the same time, she did not tell them that she and her boyfriend broke up, so she is actually single as well. So she kind of starts learning from Naz, but at the same time she's trying to find something that will break her persona that she portrays online, so that she can, write an article that will get more clicks and more engagement. And I did love how our main character was really trying to find herself, and I love the friendship. Her female friendships were really her female friendships were what made this book for me, because they were there for her throughout everything, and her aunts as well was also there for her, and I loved that support she had. What I did not like about this book is the social media aspects of it. And I know I always say that I don't like when books have social media in them, but this one specifically, because our character Naz is an influencer, and her chapters, like when we were talking about her, was so cringy. Like she just has this, I don't know, it just does not feel natural. So her whole thing is that she goes to give talks to other women, and she tells them that they're better off alone, and they can travel, they can do whatever they want instead of having someone with them all the time. And whenever our main character is with Naz, like women would come up to her and tell her like, you inspired me so much, and now I'm going through a divorce. You inspired me, so I broke up with my boyfriend. You inspired me, so I did that. And it just felt like really unrealistic. Like you wouldn't find something like this in real life at all. And I don't understand how in the book we have like grown women who just go over to this early 20-year-old woman and tell her like she inspired them because she told them to break up with their significant others. And it just felt, it really didn't feel natural. It just felt like very like in caricature, like that's how people imagine, that's how people who aren't on social media imagine people who are on social media react, in my opinion. Like it was enjoyable, but like it didn't really do much for me. It was 3 stars, like it was okay. So these are all the books that I finished in December and November. I know it's not a lot, and I know I had a lot of things to complain about, but again, this will be the last video wrap up I do in 2025. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in another video very soon. Goodbye.